Good morning, and welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. I'm Chris Rader. I'm glad to be your celebrant this morning, along with our worship leader, Reverend Thomas Perchlik. If today is your first visit, we're very glad you're here. Of course, we're glad everybody is here. We welcome every person of goodwill, just as you are, whatever your religious background or beliefs. No matter what you look like, whom you love, you are welcome here. All are invited to stay after the service for coffee, treats, and conversation. And welcome to the folks on Zoom. We've been having lots of people join us on Zoom lately. It's nice to have that option for being together. Zoom participants, you will find the order of service and the song lyrics in the chat. Owen Barnes is our Zoom host today. He's also helping out with the music. Thank you, Owen. And now, will the folks in this building please turn around and wave to the camera above the exit sign, our friends on Zoom. Yay. And now please take a moment to just greet those around you today, especially someone you don't know well. We have a few announcements today. The next meeting of the Interfaith Justice Coalition is this afternoon at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. Social time begins at 1:30 and the meeting starts at 2. And following that, there will be a rally of solidarity for Ukraine at Memorial Park starting at 3:30. Next week, yes, Ronnie? Okay, do you want to do it right now? Okay. Next week, CUUF will host a newcomer chat. If you've begun attending our services just recently and want to get to know us better and have us get to know you better, please come. We'd love to get to know you. The chat will begin right after the service next week and will include a light lunch. Also next week, we're beginning our annual stewardship drive, a time when CUUF members and friends consider how much they will financially support our fellowship in the year ahead. You'll be hearing more about this in the coming weeks. Ronnie?
I apologize for not letting you know ahead of time I needed to speak. It's just brief, but our pantry is not completely funded by our budget. And if you go in that cupboard right now, it's bare. Many people donate food. Many of us donate things in kind. But until we can figure out another solution, we need to ask if you have it in your heart to donate. Actually, to be honest, the best thing is money, because Leslie and I have really honed it down to where we can shop for the most economical, affordable. We do our best to do healthy food. But it also has to meet the needs of our clients, visitors. So I'm just letting you know that. And if you can't, I totally understand. But if you can, that would be great.
Thank you, Ronnie. That's an important announcement for us. So our fellowship buildings and our homes are located on the ancestral homeland of the Pasquosa, otherwise known as the Wenatchee Band of the Colville Confederated Tribes. Since time immemorial, the Pasquosa have lived here and have been stewards of this land. We acknowledge that their land was infringed upon during the 1800s and after because the U.S. government broke treaty obligations and allowed uninvited white colonizers to settle on Pasquosa homeland. The Pasquosa still live here, still practice their cultural traditions, and are still working to have those treaty obligations fulfilled. And now let's rise in body and spirit to sing our opening song. It's not what's written in the order of service. It's going to be number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Invite you into worship. Like the birds who come from their southern wintering into this welcoming valley, come. Enter this space to find hope and a community of open minds and warm hearts. Come let us enter this space to share our sorrows, to know our joy, to feel our passion and compassion. Come, let us enter this space to bless it with the stories of our ancestors, whose strength, whose struggle and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this place to be present with the companions who travel with us. Come into this space to claim what is of greatest worth, to seek it, to embrace it, to serve it. Welcome to worship.
In Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world, the chalice and flame symbolize people gathering together in loving community and inspiration. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join us now in lighting it. Here in the sanctuary, we'll speak these lighting words in unison on the screen or in your order of service. We light this flame to remind us that love is at the center. As we grow and connect, mature and deepen, let the flame remind us love is at the center. May we come to see that wherever the light of truth shines, love remains at the center.
And now a story. Migrant by Maxine Trottier. Pictures will be, there'll be a few of the pictures from the book up here, and I'll just read it. It's really more of a poem than a story. That was a story for all ages or a poem for all ages. A bunch of wonderful images to carry with you. And now we have a few children who can go to their classes together, so if you want to make a tunnel, they can go through the tunnel or not as they desire, and we'll all sing together. Now go with each other. Go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now is the time for honoring and remembering, a time of building deeper community with all your participation. Remember that we always have a care team that is helping organize the caring ministry of this congregation so that we are all included and cared for by one another. Today, Betsy Pierce is representing the care team. Is she here? Yeah, there's Betsy. So if you need someone to talk to or just have a need, please talk to her. We recently had a member of our congregation, Deb Bryant, who just moved, and we had several people who were helping her yesterday. But now it's a chance to just share things that are going on in your life. We try to be brief with these, if possible. Keep them down to a sentence or two. Before you share, if you want to share, you come up and get the microphone, say your name. Always say your name first. Share briefly, and then you can light a candle or ask me to light a candle on behalf and marking of that joy and sorrow. And then afterwards, there will be time for silent candles as well. When I was just a baby, my parents bought a house, and that became my home for the next 20 years of my life. I sometimes wonder if that rootedness, that stability shaped my understanding of faith and spirituality, my understanding of the UU community as a home for the Spirit. The image of the phrase, the Spirit, can mean very different things to different people. It has been a part of Christianity since the time of Jesus, but with various meanings, different understandings. This is one of the key insights is that there's only one truth, but there are a million ways to talk about it. My message today is that the Spirit is something that arises from and also motivates human beings to work together. Sometimes for good, sometimes for ill, but the ultimate Spirit is one of harmony and mercy and goodness and generosity and helping little old ladies off the street. In this sermon, the Spirit is what calls us to create a welcome community, a home for migrants and wanderers and seekers, offer empathy for those who are looking to become part of a new land or a new community. This is but one focus of a much greater Spirit, the Spirit that moves people towards love and justice, one part of all who seek to build the beloved community of loyalty and hospitality, of justice and compassion across the globe. I hope you like that little bit about Anna, the migrant. The book is more of a poem, as I said, than a story. It invokes Anna's empathy with animals, with other creatures, other living things, all different living things. And yet, through her words, her images, her feelings, it's to invoke empathy for her, our empathy for her and her siblings. It's also about helping her, or her desire to find a home, the way in which she feels about her migrant status, her shifting lifestyle, and her desire for a rootedness. We all have something of that sort, a longing for the community that will always be there, a connection that will sustain us even in times of change and transition. So this congregation and all good congregations are always a home for wanderers and wayfarers and seekers. I loved at the beginning of the Academy Awards ceremony. I saw the Academy Awards ceremony, and the two primary actresses from Wicked sang songs from previous Wizard of Oz movies. So the first one sang about the birds flying beyond the rainbow. Ariana Grande sang that. And then I was really impressed with Cynthia Erivo's, still learning her name, Cynthia Erivo's beautiful rendition of the song Home, which is from The Wiz. And it ends with these words: living here in this brand new world might be a fantasy, but it's taught me to love. So real, so real, so real to me. And I've learned that we must look inside our hearts to find a world full of love, like yours, like mine, like home. Every year, there are birds and animals that migrate, like the monarchs invoked in Anna's musings. Some of those creatures who are migrating are human beings. And with global climate change and social unrest and shifting economies, the number of people seeking a new source of income and safety and home will only grow. And as the number of people has grown, the more intertwined all of humanity has become. We must think, what does this mean for our lives? Are we part of a global community? Is the earth our home, or are we a fortress on a hill repelling invaders from foreign lands? I just began reading Neil Gaiman's book, American Gods. I don't know where it goes exactly yet, but in the very first chapter, there's two men who are in a prison, and they're talking. And they mention the ancient Greek philosopher Herodotus. I'll give a quote. And another man says, "Who's that guy? And who's Herodotus?" And they said, "Oh, he's a dead Greek." He goes, oh, my last girlfriend was a Greek. They ate the weirdest stuff. Just total crap, like rice wrapped in leaves. Of course, I knew about dolmades and love them. I savor them, enjoy them. But that guy wasn't familiar with the different cultures, wasn't open to the different people. Now I understand the fear that we have, people who may have of immigrants, that they may come and compete with current American citizens, but we as a nation, except when racism has gotten in our way, we as a nation have always understood that more people from more places means a more robust economy and a richer culture. To create a home for everyone, we need empathy as one tool for building understanding and true peace. Essentially, empathy is about understanding and identifying with someone, while compassion is more about seeing a person's suffering and wanting to help them. Neither is independent of the other. No compassion is really full and engaging unless it is motivated by an empathy with the one who is suffering. Now, so in this context, I saw a video this last week from some religious leaders on Facebook in this valley. And they declared that empathy was a sinful danger. They said that women were more susceptible to this sin, and they linked it with what they called the Jezebel spirit. And I utterly rejected this anti-feminist attitude, the stereotyping of women. But more importantly, the idea that you can separate empathy from compassion and interdependence, pluralism, and generosity, and justice, and equity, and transformation, and love is just bad spirituality. You have to be able to empathize with other human beings in order to help them fully. They wanted to disassociate empathy from what it means to be a part of the people of God, as if such division was healthy and righteous and good. Now, there are some forms of just pure empathy that can be problematic, but to disassociate the two, empathy from compassion, is just wrong. In Buddhism, teachers will speak about the near enemies of the virtues. Virtues are clearly stated, multiple. Buddhists have lots and lots of lists. There are lists of virtues. But there are and these are good states that lead us away from fear or anger or delusion. But the enemies are sure true, and like one of the, this is compassion. Compassion is a key virtue in Buddhism. And the enemy of compassion is hatred or fear. To hate other people, to fear other people is not to be compassionate, it's to push them away, want to push them away. And then they talk about near enemies. So it's obvious, hatred is against love, right? But then there are these near enemies like pity. If you're going to be compassionate about a person, but then you get filled with this sort of piteous attitude, you're putting that person down. You're making them less than you. You're using your power to feel better than they do, instead of identifying with their pain and being with them in their suffering and with them in their release and their healing and their wholeness. It might make you more comfortable to engage in pity, but it distances you. When we have empathy, we understand people. We understand what they need and what they want and why they have not been able to find it. To embody empathy means that we have to be able to open our hearts as well as our doors. To practice hospitality by welcoming the stranger as neighbor is a difficult spiritual discipline. There was an ancient rabbi named Jesus of Nazareth. Right? He taught this as part of living with love at the center. Love one another as I have loved you, he said. Love your enemy. Jesus, like all spiritual teachers, showed constant love for everyone, including outcasts and the poor. So a key UU value in our most recent statement of shared values is equity. To apply that value to our living is to declare that every person, not just the right people, not just the good people, but everyone has a right to flourish with inherent dignity. Dignity is inclusion, recognition, and worthiness, your value. So it is, as Unitarian Universalists, we covenant to use our time and wisdom and attention and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. That means empathy and inclusion for migrants and immigrants and all the other variations of humanity and all our non-human neighbors and relations. Birds like geese, butterfly, salmon, all these creatures are all undocumented, but they come here every year. Just wanted you to think about that. Well, some of them may be documented. They get the little tags, and some scientist pays attention. But we, in this valley, understand the value of migrants. Migrants have long been essential to the health and the wealth of this area. One of the signs at the pro-immigrant protest several weeks back said, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you." I like that. Over the decades, some of those who were migrants to Wenatchee became immigrants and citizens and essential parts of the community, and that's because there was a welcoming spirit here. There was an empathetic spirit. There was a warm spirit. In this room, sitting here in this room, listening to members of this community, I have learned how difficult it is to become a citizen, how expensive it is to become a citizen, how hard emotionally and intellectually it is. And how important it is to have people who are helpers, like those in Hand, or in Wenatchee for Immigrant Justice, reaching out, opening up, making connections, showing empathy in helping people become a part of a greater community. This fellowship is a welcome home for wandering souls. Even those who don't become a part of the fellowship still feel our welcome and our kindness and our openness. We've always nurtured hope for everyone, dignity, and worth. We trust that human intelligence and human affection can temper and ultimately overcome all cruel circumstance and misguided malice. With faith in the power of reason and compassion, we are open to the movement of the Spirit. All around the world, we see it. May we and all human souls find our social responsibilities and salvation linked. And this nurtures ourselves. It's funny, when I chose the title Migration of the Spirit, I didn't know exactly what I was going to talk about. And then I went online and I found a guy who wrote a book entitled Migration of the Spirit. A guy named, he's a Christian, named Brian McLaren. He also wrote a book called Faith After Doubt, which fits with a lot of us. Faith After Doubt. And he said there's this journey of the Spirit which goes from simplicity to complexity to perplexity to harmony. And many of us have gone on that journey, right? But in Migration of the Spirit, he tries to counter the dire headlines about the demise of faith and religious community, and talks, especially in terms of his Christian identity, in terms of spirituality. He notes there's a growing number of people who are moving away from defining themselves by lists of beliefs and towards a way of life that is defined by love. Theologically, he sees people who are rejecting the image of a God as a dark, angry, supreme being, holding fire in one hand, and instead a God who is the renewing Spirit at work in our world for for the common good. He said, in terms of mission, the faithful are identifying less with organized religion and much more with organizing people and in religion. Spiritual activists dedicated to healing the planet, building peace, overcoming poverty and injustice and the inequities of those systems, and collaborating with other faiths to ensure a better future for all. So today, we affirm our connections with one another, listening for the love that moves between each of us and in us and brings us together. But we listen out into the larger community, hand in hand and others, the organizations that are helping people become citizens, helping the strangers become our neighbors. I have learned a lot as I have moved around often through my career. Since my childhood, those first 20 years, where I lived in one building for my 20 years, over the past 40 some odd years, I have had 20 different addresses. And yet everywhere I have gone, because as a Unitarian Universalist and a minister, I always found a welcoming community. I always found people who were living by that spirit that moves everywhere, creating justice and hope and peace and love. I wanted you to know that we've had renters who've come to worship here. Renters, hispanohablantes, personas de México and otros países. They took down their sign because they're afraid. They still rent here, but they were afraid because ICE is moving in the streets. And to invoke the spirit of awareness of this fear, and also to invoke the spirit of love and hope, we'll now listen to a song, ICE el Hielo, by La Santa Cecilia.
We share our collection plate with a local organization that is helping our community in ways that match our UU values. Kathy and Jerry Bailey will introduce the director and another leader of this month's recipient, Hand in Hand for Immigration Services.
Okay, oh, it's down short for me even. I'd like to introduce Norma Gallegos. She is known for her deep knowledge of our immigrant community. Long before I met Norma, I was told that she was the person I needed to meet if I wanted to work and support immigrants in our community. They told me that she always has the pulse of that immigrant community. Jerry and I have volunteered with them and have learned how vital the work of this organization is to North Central Washington. Norma is the founder and legal director of Hand in Hand. She was born in the Michoacan state of Mexico, located in west central Mexico on the Pacific side. Her parents immigrated in the early 70s to the state of Kansas, where Norma and her siblings attended Catholic school. In 1988, she came out and visited an uncle in Omak, and she decided to stay. This was a life-changing event for her, but at one point she decided she wanted to move back to Kansas to be with her parents. And as life would have it, Gustavo Montoya came into her life, and she ended up staying. And I like to thank Gustavo for keeping her here, and both the Valley and we have won in that decision. Anyway, her children and her are all born in Kansas, and they graduated from Wenatchee High School. So that's Norma. We also have a new member of Hand in Hand, Dr. Fabiola Barbosa, and she was welcomed as the new executive director of Hand in Hand on March 1st, so very brand new. Her parents immigrated from Mexico when she was 2 years old, and she's a graduate of Eastmont High School. She holds a PhD in leadership and higher education, as well as an MS in college student affairs and a BA in business administration. As a first-generation U.S. citizen, she worked in the fields and warehouses during the summers on her way to achieving her many college degrees. A personal connection with Hand in Hand occurred in September of 2024 when her father, a resident of over 50 years, became a U.S. citizen after utilizing the services of Hand in Hand. She is bicultural and bilingual. As a respected member who has served on several statewide organizations related to higher education, advocacy, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and having a passion for supporting the underrepresented members in our community, she is poised to excel at Hand in Hand. We're so welcome to have both of these women come up and share a little bit about Hand in Hand today. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here. As I was listening to the sermon this morning, listening to the song that was shared, it brought me back to a thought. I haven't shared this publicly very often. This is actually the second time. But I grew up in the Valley, and my parents always took us to the drive-in, if you remember the drive-in, and also the movie theater and roller skating. And so we never spent our weekends at home. And I always thought that it was because my parents were really cool. And it wasn't until they started to close down the drive-in that my mom shared with us that the reason that she and my dad took my brother out of the household on the weekends was to prevent us from seeing the wraiths. And so that's how they protected us, so that we wouldn't be exposed to that. And it wasn't until I was much older that I understood what was happening. And so I just wanted to share that I feel that what is happening in our community. I saw a video yesterday that was posted of a gentleman that was picked up, and that just resonates and brings up a lot of memories. But I feel that I am where I'm supposed to be, and that now, alongside an amazing team, that we can together make a difference for our valley. So thank you for having us here today and for providing us this opportunity.
Thank you for every one of you and for this congregation to inviting us. A few years back, Gustavo and I came and spoke, and you guys shared the plate gracefully with our community partners. We thank you tremendously for everything you're doing. So it was about 16 years ago that Immigration Services came to Wenatchee, and I was happily employed at Head Start. And they came and they had names of 3 women: Melissa Hernandez, Melissa Hernandez, and Norma Gallegos, and Nadia Trujillo. If you don't know her, she's a Russian. She was teaching at the time. And I said, why are they looking for us? You don't have dual citizenship, but let's meet with these guys. So they met with us and said that they were being mandated to come out of their comfort zone. He was the director and he's adjudicator. They were mandated to come out of their comfort zone and find out why people were not becoming citizens, because Washington State, at the time, 160,000 Washingtonians were eligible to become citizens. They were not becoming citizens. So I remember telling the director, which now he's a friend of mine, he's retired, I said, well, first of all, you don't want to be here, you're being mandated. And if you're looking for volunteers, why would we be helping you? And he said, well, we're trying to do meetings and gatherings and town halls and nobody comes. I said, who would want to come see you? Because you're not out there with a good reputation helping people. So they discovered they needed to come out and talk about why people were not becoming citizens and how we can facilitate. So they decided to come, and a few of us volunteered, started helping different areas, different churches, volunteering. Once we discovered that it was about information. People that have been legally living here for years and years, the majority became legal residents through the Ronald Reagan amnesty. So you know they've been here legally 30 plus years in your communities, contributing, and have not become citizens for different reasons, because there's a very expensive fee. There were materials, there was different trips to Yakima, and attorneys were tremendously expensive, still are. So that's when we became volunteers helping thousands of people get the information There were 30 plus volunteers, just like Kathy and Jerry, helping people prepare for the naturalization process. 3 years later, they said, you should become accredited. We'll endorse you, we'll help you work through the Department of Justice, because designing programs like Word Relief, helping you, you can design your program and help people that cannot afford an attorney. So that's how we started. I'm reminding you that our program has helped, directly or indirectly, over 16,000 people. Our program became independent 10 years ago. So it took us about 5 years to not only accredit Norma, the location, but I was out in Spokane, so Gustavo decided to marry me and take care of me for a few years so I can go and work as a volunteer and learn what this was all about before they could endorse us. I'm proud to say that we've been 10 years independent. We have not raised our fees. Our program is designed to only help people that have had a permanent resident card. The majority over 30 years. Still have to learn the 100 questions about U.S. government, still have to pay the fee. Our job is to meet with every person and listen to their story. So if you can imagine listening to thousands of stories for the minute these folks cross the border, how they cross the border, and where we're at today. Our job is to gather that entire package, send it off, it'll be matched with the old file from 30 years ago and figure out. So it's a lot of work that comes into this place. So we ask you to gracefully share the plate because we have been overwhelmed with people coming in asking for services we cannot provide. And you know how difficult that is? That we still have to listen to their story while we cannot help them. So desperately, I've been waiting for our new executive director to step up and help us stay strong. A few years ago, I was giving up. And I remember that night, Gustavo says, we will never give up. And Larry Tabisca came and saved us. He knows what I'm talking about. And we are here strong today because people like you, and people like out there that are ready to help us serve, because we become like a referral fountain of helping others, referring people. So out of 10 people that walk in the door, we probably can only help 2. And the rest, that is not even part of our daily duties. How do we motivate? How do we assist? Well, if you have a parent or a family member that could become a U.S. citizen, we'll help them so they can help you and petition. So there is this flow of hope that we can help people, help others that are out there hiding. And we are living difficult times as we speak, and every day is a new day. How can we reach out and welcome the stranger? Is it a gesture? Is it a dollar? Is it whatever you can afford to help our neighbors? There's different ways you can help. So please, let's not just talk the talk. Let's continue walking the walk, holding hands. Thank you.
Gracias, Norma y Fabiola. And now it's time for our offertory, which is a spiritual practice that expresses our gratitude and our generosity. All cash gifts today will go to Hand in Hand Immigration. If you'd like to write a check to them, please make the check out to CUUF and put either Hand in Hand or Share the Plate in the memo line. All checks without those words in the memo line will go toward your annual pledge. Joyfully sharing our gifts and strengths in service to the greater good is one way we create the beloved community. We will now receive the offering. We are blessed by your generosity. May your gifts make a difference in our community through the ministries of this church and through Hand in Hand Immigration. And now, let's rise in body or in spirit to sing our closing song, Crowded Table.
In the light of love and worship, as we come to the end of this focused moment of attention to what we value the most and the community that sustains us, let us realize that we must go out onto the streets where the ice moves and fear moves. Let us move instead by spirit, by love, by kindness, by empathy, by generosity, forming the beloved community wherever we shall go.
And now, as we extinguish our chalice, please join in saying the words printed in your order of service or on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are, and embody in our lives until we are together again. And our tradition is to join hands around the circle and sing one more time together.
Thanks, Owen.